Okay, my good sir.
Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was originally released in September of 1999 for the PlayStation 1, PC, Sega Dreamcast, and the Nintendo GameCube.
I love the GameCube.
The Resident Evil 3 Remake was first released in 2020 and is available for the PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series PC, Amazon Luna, I don't know what that is, and a cloud version is available on the Switch.
I didn't know that 3 originally had a subtitle.
Yes.
Huh.
I don't think it actually has a number. I think it's Resident Evil Nemesis.
Weird.
I think.
I love learning things from you. You're so smart.
It was developed and published by Capcom. The story. The story starts with Jill Valentine moping around her apartment when suddenly she's attacked by the Nemesis. He chases her through the apartment building, literally breaking through walls and floors, until she finally loses him outside. She finds some STARS operatives that need their train turned on from the train office. They're like, we're on the train, but the train's not running. It's been derailed or whatever. It's been shut down. So you gotta go to the office and turn it on. So Jill volunteers to find the computer that turns the train on. She makes her way through town, solving a few, like 2 or 3 puzzles, and on her way back to the train is attacked by Nemesis again.
Am I stupid and don't remember? Is the Nemesis a character that was introduced in 2, or is this new?
New.
Okay, it's new. I'm just dumb.
This time he pulls a rocket launcher out of his ass, but it's okay. His launcher has a laser pointer on it, so Jill has a warning of which way to duck at the last second.
Oof.
After the town part of the game, the story progresses on to the police station we are so familiar with from the second game.
Whoa.
It turns out when you are in the police station in 3, it is very shortly before Leon runs through it in 2. While here, you, the player, are controlling Carlos, Jill's newly found STARS friend. Playing as Carlos feels different because he has an assault rifle, not a small pistol like Jill. More on this later, but for now, Carlos needed some info from the STARS PC in the police station.
I didn't realize that these games were set so close together.
Meanwhile, Jill has another boss fight with the Nemesis. This time he's starting to evolve and is behaving more like an animal, running on all fours and climbing a tower like King Kong. At the end of the fight, he infects her with the T virus or some other virus. I don't remember. One of the viruses. Carlos finds her, drags her to the local hospital where he finds an antidote for her.
What a coinkydink.
While Jill was out, the US government announces that it's going to nuke Raccoon City because it is so overrun with zombies. After getting the antidote, Jill wakes up shortly before the nuke. It turns out there's an umbrella lab under the hospital. Here, Jill makes a vaccine for the zombie virus, but encounters Nemesis one last time. And in fact, I think I missed one where he has a flamethrower. Nemesis has evolved to be the size of a room. He's just a big pile of sludge.
I think I saw you doing that fight on stream, I think.
So Jill uses a railgun that's conveniently in the same room to finally kill him dead. After this, she encounters the actual villain of the story on the roof. I don't remember his name. This part was so underbaked. Where they struggle, all in a cutscene. The vaccine is destroyed, and Jill flies away in a helicopter seconds before the nuke destroys the town, trying to figure out how she's gonna make a vaccine again. The visuals are mostly the same as the other recent games. Resident Evil 2 Remake, RE7, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, because they all use the same engine. However, while I'm on a bad entry in the series, I'm gonna add to the hate boner because I remembered while playing this game that the engine isn't perfect. Fire physics are kind of ass. The animation looks wonky, almost like that one animation is running at a different frame rate than the rest of the game. It's blocky and it moves weird. It's kind of slow. When playing Resident Evil games, I usually take my time and try to move tactfully. I have found that if there's an enemy, say at the end of a long hallway, that enemy is definitely moving at a different frame rate. My educated guess is that there's some sort of method to the game loading the world in and out at a certain distance from the player, so when there's a long distance, like that hallway, that enemy is sort of in limbo to give the engine stronger computing power for things close to the player to make it look pretty. While cool, it makes most of these games run and look really good. It's not very good when you get glimpses under the hood like that. There's specifically one hallway in the police station that has a window that zombies break through and kind of hang out there. It's close to a safe room.
And it looks like doo-doo.
Yeah, when they break through and when they're pacing around at the end of that hallway, they're moving so slowly that it's impossible to shoot them accurately. Otherwise, it's standard RE engine fare. Nemesis looks grisly and cool, kind of like a sick version of a Terminator. Levels look good and load in well. I rarely, if ever, had any pop in. Sound design, I cheated and wrote ditto. Like, it's the same fare. Guns sound different and cool. Zombies sound sick and cool. Yeah, you get a lot of warnings about like what's in a room when you just stop and listen. Gameplay.
Oh boy.
When I wrote out my recap of the story, I had to make notes about the gameplay so I could keep these sections different. I used like that notes feature in like the Google Docs to have like a sidebar of thoughts. My complaints start from the very beginning. The game opens with a very basic difficulty select and then jumps straight into the game. There's no character select, there's no minor options like subtitles, nothing. It was very jarring. Nemesis attacks Jill in her apartment for no reason. Nemesis's actions are piss poorly explained, if ever at all. Most of the chase scenes, especially the opening one, is 90% holding the stick forward and watching Jill stumble towards the escape. While they aren't technically a QTE, a QuickTime event, they might as well have been. It would have been more enjoyable to have a nice looking cutscene. Nemesis literally just growls stars. Like, that's his motivation, is like he kills stars.
What
people.
The fuck?
The town map in the OG Resident Evil 3 was gigantic. It took a couple hours to play through. The version of it in this game is extremely small. Literally 2 sections of street with a small connector in between. Having played through it once, I could probably run through that section in, I don't know, a half an hour now. When Jill gets the train going and is trying to return to it, Nemesis attacks with his rocket launcher. There is so much bullshit in this section. Nemesis can jump crazy heights and lengths to block Jill's way. It feels like the developers made this possible in this one section to slow down Jill's progress. It feels like the worst kind of padding. It's literally just a fuck you. You can't go this way. Take the long way.
Jeez.
It felt like there wasn't a good reason to go back to the police station, unlike in the original. OG Resident Evil 3 was slightly confusing at a slightly confusing edition because it is PD before the events of 2 and logically adds to the story, like how walls are destroyed. You see the destruction in 2, but in 3 you can see that it's literally Nemesis walking through it, chasing you through the wall.
So, did you play the original version recently, or you just...
I did a lot of research to find out...
Why weird?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Remake... The police department is a very cheap copy. Remake, this section is a very cheap copy of the original 3 for like no reason. It doesn't add much to the story really at all. It's just wasted time. It's very frustrating playing as Carlos because the enemy count is clearly like tripled, almost certainly because of his assault rifle. This makes playing with a higher powered weapon feel like even slower progression because there are more roadblocks. It's just padding. It's bad game design. The Nemesis fights are annoying. I felt annoyed every time he popped up, not scared. The flamethrower boss fight is literally just running circles on a rooftop and shoot him until he dies. In the next fight, where he's King Kong, there's a gimmick to it. I had to do this like 2 or 3 times because I didn't know what the gimmick was. I knew there was something that I was missing because he kept doing the same animations, but I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. The final fight was super easy. The game literally explains what to do a couple different times. There's notes that you pick up or whatever, and it makes what should be the climactic fight feel like a fart.
Oof.
At the end of the game, you get the customary rating on how you did, and then you're brought to the main menu. Depending on how many challenges you completed, what difficulty you played on, how good of a rating you got, and a bunch of other things, you get points you can spend in the store in the menu to unlock alternate costumes, weapons, and other things. Obviously, this encourages replays. I didn't even spend the points I earned. I just immediately uninstalled and downloaded OG4 because that's my next review.
Wow.
I would rather run through 2 again than try to do anything memorable in this game.
Dang. Are you interested in playing the original version of 3 to see the differences? Because it sounds like it... I think I might have heard something about this being like lower budget than the 2 remake or something, and that's why they had to trim out so much or whatever. Like, are you interested in going to see what, like, the birth of differences between the 2 versions?
I'm kind of curious, but it has that feeling that it's an old school game, so I worry that I'd be unable to play it, like, just to be blunt. Like, I struggled with the RE1 remake or remaster because it plays like an old school game. There's old school logic to it and things, so I don't know how well I would do at it, but it was really, really interesting watching just straight playthroughs of the OG3 just to see what was different. In closing, I played this remake with no experience with Nemesis with 3 at all. I didn't know anything about the story, the characters, the reviews, nothing. I knew that the fan base panned this one, and that was it. I didn't know why. After completing the game, I couldn't easily put to words what I felt. I just knew that it felt hollow. It was missing the sauce. And
is that a Spencer reference to last month? Holy shit.
No, it's just, that's how I felt. It was missing the sauce. But I couldn't explain, like, what kind of sauce. If it was spaghetti sauce or chocolate sauce. Like, I don't know what it's missing, but it's clearly missing something. I then did a bunch of research and I found out that this game is extremely hollow. It's embarrassing how much the original game outshines this one 20 years later. Almost everything in this remake was cut very short, excluded, and or neglected. Before my research, I felt annoyed at having played kind of a boring game, and after my research, I was upset that I had given my money to the Kmart special pirated copy of Resident Evil 2.
Oof. Youch.
I got this game for $15, and I don't know if I'll ever play it again.
Dang. That's rough. Do you guys remember Kmart? Are you old enough for that?
Do
we have listeners? And are our listeners old enough to know what Kmart is? What about Sears?
Remember the Sears catalog?
Yeah.
That bitch was fat.
It was kind of boring because it's mostly appliances, but yeah.
And a lot of tools, too. Like,
yeah, I wasn't
do you need
into,
a wrench?
I wasn't into that shit yet.
What size wrench do you need?
Correction, I'm still not into that shit.
There's 6 pages of wrenches.
And that's just the Craftsman ones.
There were so many things. Like, my review doesn't cover, like, what's different between the two. It was cool doing all the research to find out, like, how cool the original 3 was. Fans love fighting Nemesis in the original. Like, he's a fun design and he's horrifying and cool. there's like choices that you can make in certain areas. It wasn't great. It wasn't a good choice system, but it's still kind of added to the game. Like, there's one time Nemesis pops up and it's like, are you gonna stay and fight him, or are you gonna run away from him and into the police department where it's safe? He chases you through the police department in the original, and he doesn't in the remake at all.
That definitely smells like budget.
Yeah.
Oof.
So like I was saying, in the original games, there's a wall in the bathroom that there's a hole in it in the wall in the second one, and then in the third one you find out it's because he breaks through the wall and is chasing you. And then in this one, in the 3 remake, you just put a block of C4 up to the wall and blow it.
Wow.
Like,
that's lame.
It's so lame.
Weird. Dang, that sucks. So you had more fun researching it than you did playing it.
Yep.
That's not a good sign.